share from my end. Okay, while we're trying to do that, can you see me? Okay, let me just share from my end. 1 second, very quickly. Okay, while we're trying to do that, I mean, for Islamic finance, it's always more interesting when you have all the models being displayed. That's when it's clear, because Islamic finance is more about structured finance and all of that. So let's see if I can just put in that presentation very quickly. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay, while that is ongoing, so we don't take all the time, let me just, okay. Is that from your end, the one being displayed?
No, yes.
Okay, that presentation, okay, so can we move to the next slide, please? Can we just move to the next slide? Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to start. I mean, we only have an hour or so thereabout. I'm going to start with a quick description of non-interest banking or Islamic finance and how it differs from conventional finance, which I think is called to have a very good grip of that first, you know. And as a rule, for the purpose of this session, we're just going to accept it as a rule, you know, looking at the uniqueness of alternative finance. So globally, it's called Islamic finance. In Nigeria, we call it non-interest finance. There's one thing that is actually prohibited. That is interest. You know, no matter how small it is. You know, some scholars in the past have differentiated. I'm talking about in the Islamic finance space 50 years ago. Some scholars have differentiated usury from interest. But by the mid-70s, scholars have agreed globally that any addition, you know, money itself, any money earned or money received or money itself, is interest. So if I give you £1 billion, you're supposed to give me £1 back as a condition for that £1 billion. It is interest. So no matter how tiny it is, it's interest. So under Islamic finance, interest is outrightly prohibited. Outrightly, right? We're going to talk about what is permissible and how we can then inject it within the realm of fixed income. Other things are also prohibited. Gambling, any form of gambling. You know, so by gambling, what I mean here is that somebody puts in some amount, another person puts in some amount, and then somebody goes away with everything, and the other guy gets nothing. You know, any transaction that has features of that is not allowed. So again, conventional insurance suffers from such. Uncertainty, any form of extreme risk, you know, you cannot do sale of debts, you know, you cannot do such derivatives. You cannot create products from debts or from receivables. We'll talk about that briefly as we go on. Again, commercial insurance suffers from that, and a lot of the derivative products, usually very common in Western economies, right? They're not allowed. Lastly, any form of unethical concerns. By unethical concerns, I will mean, in this case, alcohol, tobacco, pork, pornography, and the likes, you know, and of course, conventional financial institutions, and any product or process that the Sharia scholars, you know, what we call in Nigeria, Advisory Committee of Experts, what they term as unethical. So even if there's a transaction that looks good on the surface of it, you know, and there's a process in that transaction, you know, and the Sharia scholar, those that sit on the board of the company or the bank or the financial institution, they said this transaction, from these features around the transaction, we are of the opinion that it's not compliant. It's not compliant. And so what has happened in Nigeria is that the central bank has got a team, you know, 7 members on their board. They call it FRACE, advisory financial advisor advisory council of experts. You know, so the banks will use the advisory committee of experts. Is now in other countries around the world, they simply use Sharia board or Sharia advisory committee. Interestingly, a lot of countries, their regulators do not have Sharia boards, but Nigeria we do. So in Nigerian environment, a lot of regulation has gone in. I think we have a lot more regulation than most countries around the world. We're usually seen among the first top 10 countries in the world with a lot of regulation on Islamic finance, right? Covering different aspects of finance. So we've done very well there. So these are the 4 things that are not allowed. In the case of interest, it's actually prohibited. The other ones, you have to avoid them as much as possible, right? As much as possible. So let's move to the next slide, please. Now, having this basic definition, let's quickly run through the global market. So there has been growth of the industry, of course, globally. When I'm talking about the industry, Islamic finance industry, I want to box banking, capital market, including Islamic funds and takaful, into a basket. So yeah, they've grown at about 8.3%. But if you look at Sukuk has grown about 25.6%, even more recently, just about this. So the more recent figures are not very different from this. If you look at the bottom, Bahrain alone, retail banking is at 27%, right? And in the GCC, you're having the growth of average of about 25%. So what that means is that it's growing very well, but that field is not across board. In Africa, compared to the entire market, it's just about 1% or even less than 1%. So we're not doing as well, right? That's why we have a lot of experts in that area, a lot of regulations coming in. So I think we're slow starter, but I think we're catching up gradually. So again, just like economic development generally, we see where financial indicators, right, do not result into impact, societal impact. So yeah, there can be GDP growth, there can be growth in GNI, foreign direct investment. However, we do not see that impact the development of our country, for example. So poverty is high, unemployment is high, and all of that. Again, the same thing, unfortunately, has applied in the case of Islamic finance, especially for developing countries like Nigeria, right? We have seen growth in the industry without real impact in the lives of a lot of people. So that's why I'm not going to talk about the Makosi today or Makosi Sharia. We'll talk about that today. But it's a primary purpose, which has to do with touching lives, communities and individuals. So globally, Islamic finance has grown about 25% on the average. However, we have not seen reduction in poverty in OIC countries, for example. We've not seen reduction. We've not seen reduction in financial inclusion in these regions, right? So those are some other challenges, in that area. But let's be quantitative for today and just say, okay, there's growth, just like you have growth in the economies without development. So again, there's growth in the Islamic finance industry, but without achieving the Makosi, the primary purpose of Sharia, right? But let's just move on. Let's assume there's growth. Let's move to the next slide, please. In the next slide, you're going to be seeing what has happened in Nigeria. Next slide, please. So for the next slide, we're going to be seeing what has happened in the country, in Nigeria. Can you move to the next slide, please? So in Nigeria, for example, we're witnessing the case whereby you have some kind of growth, but very marginal growth, right? The growth is rather too marginal, right? So for example, if you're at the next slide, we did a 5-year projection, for the industry, try to forecast, and we realized that in Nigeria, for example, let's break it down into the Sukuk market and the other risk assets, right? The debt market in Nigeria is over 30 trillion naira debt market, right? The Sukuk market until, should I say, this week, just before this week, at the end of last year, was just about 211 billion, which is just 0.69% of the entire market. That is tiny, very, very tiny, right? For Islamic finance industry to catch up with the conventional finance, to be able to do even just 3%, say in the next 5 years, we're going to have to put in Sukuk of 711 billion on the table. And right now, with the federal government Sukuk that is ongoing, we're going to see another 150 billion. Yeah, so it means that, you know, the figures will then reduce to about, if you like, just, you know, about 550 thereabout, 550 billion that we need to do. Now, what this means is that there's, with all the effort and everything, the regulation, there is growth, right? Even in the Islamic finance, in the capital market, but compared to what you have in the conventional space, a very tiny growth, right? And so for those in conventional space, it's easy to buy bonds and a lot of other instruments. It's readily available. For those that are interested in Sharia compliant transactions, they're having, I mean, it's quite difficult to get these instruments. They come once in a while, you know, just like we have the federal government to go right now. So if we're to do just 3%, assuming there will be the conventional space, they're not going to do any new bonds, right? You know, it means our increase will have to be to 3.38%. That's going to be the level of increase we're going to see, just to do 3%. On the asset side, by asset, I mean what you call loans ordinarily. You know, we don't use the word loans as such in Islamic finance. So if you look at the total asset value in Nigeria, 2018 December, is at 37 trillion naira. Non-interest banking is barely at 160 billion. That's just 0.43%, right? For us to measure up, you know, for Islamic finance to measure up, just to do about 3%, you know, we're going to be needing to put almost $1 billion worth of assets on the table, 957 billion, you know, to be precise, right? So that's about 600% increase, you know. That's a lot of work, you know. Now, when you don't have these assets on the table, it then means that there'll be no investments, because in Islamic finance, just like you're going to see in the other slide I'm going to show, in Islamic finance, if there's no assets, there can be no investments, whether it's fixed or whether it's not fixed, right? So a major aspect in the business is to put assets on the table. Again, like I said, what I mean by asset, what you call loans ordinarily, you know, we call them assets, right? You know, in finance, assets that are compliant with Sharia principles, right? This asset, again, based on this slide, can come in two forms. Either they come in the form of bonds, in this case, Sukuk for us, or they come in the form of regular risk assets. What do I mean by regular risk assets? Again, like I said, what you call loans, right? So financing, housing development, vehicle finance of all sorts, you know, agricultural finance, you know, all sorts of, you know, trade deals, you know. Now, this needs to increase. So let's give an example. Assuming right now we have an inflow, liability, cash, into the non-interest banking space of ₦1 trillion, and there are no assets. The money is just going to be staring at everybody every day. It's not going to do anything. So if you have a lot of cash, you know, in the Islamic banking space, and you don't generate the assets, you know, then you're unable to match liability with assets. So there's a problem. And so the industry cannot grow. So that's one thing that affected the growth of the industry in Nigeria. We have not been able to create asset, one. Two, we have not been able to convert existing assets and make them Sharia compliant, you know, big time, not just, you know, one or two little transactions here and there, you know. We need to convert loads of assets, you know. Again, so what you're having in federal government Sukuk is, okay, you say, oh, why want to build roads? Why do we just, you know, since the roads are there, you just want to expand them or repair them or build new ones? Yeah, that looks like a good asset. But the truth is that we've got assets everywhere. We've got houses everywhere. We have got manufacturing plants everywhere. We've got tank farms and equipment and, you know, renewable assets and all that. Now, all of this can be converted. So let's then go to the next slide. So for me now, I'm going to be looking at, just a second. I don't know if my slides are being shared because I'm using my own version here. So I'm going to go to the next thing we're going to look at today, right, which is non-interest finance fixed income contracts. What kind of contracts? So again, for Islamic finance or for non-interest finance, as the case may be, there will always be underlying contracts for everything we do. Even if you just want to have a current account deposit, it must be backed by a Sharia compliant contract, right? Even if you want a guarantee, something as simple as a guarantee, it must be backed by a Sharia compliant contract. So for every transaction in the non-interest finance space, there is a Sharia contract based on Islamic commercial jurisprudence at the back of it that supports that product. So for every product or for every proposition that comes on the table, there's a contract. So again, this is just a very short program. So we're looking at just a few very basic ones that I think we're going to need to be able to describe fixed income funds to a very large extent. So I'm going to be looking very quickly at investment partnership contracts, for liability. By liability, I mean deposits. We're going to look at investment agency, also for liability, that's deposits. And we'll look at sale and lease contracts for the asset side, right? So in finance, assets is liability and it must match all the time as much as possible, right? So if you have 100 naira worth of liability, you need to have 100 naira worth of assets. Our accountants know how to fill up the space, when necessary. Okay, so let's go to slide 7. I hope you've seen the slide. On slide 7, you're going to be seeing here the basic Islamic finance contracts. Our slide 7 is showing there, slide 7. You have equity, debt, and you have services. I'll put them into those 3 categories.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, lovely, lovely. I'll put them into 3 categories, 3 broad categories. And as much as possible, I'm only going to touch on them very briefly because of time. Now, there's what we call the equity contracts, right? Islamic equity contracts. Equity contracts are partnerships. Partnerships, I would say they are the best form of Islamic finance. They are the appropriate Islamic finance contracts. They're the original contracts. It's original partnership. But again, somebody wants to buy a car just to cruise around town. Doesn't the partnership contract? Maybe not. It needs a debt contract. And so debt contracts have to emerge over time, right? And then there's some other contracts. They're not debt, they're not equity. They're just services, Again, for services are the part in green. We've tried to box services into basic categories. There can be more than that. This is just a very good summary of Islamic finance globally. So for partnership, you have what we call Murabaha, investment partnership, right? Now, why I've put that blue, where you have that blue box, right? For partnership and for agency, is because those 2 contracts can also be used as liability contracts, as deposit contracts, right? That's why I put them in blue boxes, 2 of them. They can be used as Murabaha, they can be used as liability contracts. As Murabaha can be liability, can be assets, right? Agency, wakala, can be liability, can be assets, right? Right. So let's look from the angle of assets first. So again, by asset, I mean what you ordinarily call loan or facility assets, right? So on the asset side, some transactions are partnership basis, on the basis of partnership. So there's a partnership where the bank or the financial institution, one party brings all the money. Where there's a loss, that person loses all his money, right? So if you have a transaction structured within the partnership mode, it means that there's no fixed income, right? There's no fixed income because you put in ₦1 billion in an investment. Somebody is bringing in, fertilizer from somewhere, right? And then you decide to put in. You're going to look at one of those deals, real life, right? Like in other slides, you bring a fertilizer worth ₦1 billion on the basis of partnership. The bank brings ₦1 billion. The other person is just the experts. They keep the fertilizer in some warehouse, and something happens to them. Maybe it goes in transit. They didn't do it takaful insurance. There's an accident. Everything, gets into River Niger. Right? So that's a loss. So they don't have capital, use the entire capital. So if you have invested in that kind of project, there's nothing to share because even the capital is done. Right? In the case of joint ownership, the 2 parties are bringing the cash together to buy this fertilizer. They're doing the business together. So when there's a loss, they take the loss. The thing goes into the river, and there's no proper, mitigants, takaful in place. By takaful, I mean insurance, to cover all of the risk you're exposed to, transit risk, keeping in the warehouse, the risk of it not being stolen, all of that, and of course, even the repayment risk, the ability to get it sold out and you get repayment very quickly. If there's a loss, you lose your money based on the capital you have put on the table. Now, so any transaction that comes under that red equity, you cannot get any form of fixed income. In fact, you may not even get any income. And shall I tell you what? Globally, the use is about 35% globally by Islamic banks because the risk is very high, extremely high. In Nigeria, the possibility that an equity transaction will be successful is less than 10%. I say this with the utmost authority and with a lot of experience. The possibility that an equity transaction will be successful is less than 10%. So for every 100 transaction you bring on base of equity, is only less than 10% will be successful. Less than 10 of them will be successful. So the risk is very high, right? Again, there could be some transaction where you have the option of exiting in the future. That exit option, gives you, if you like, a breathing space. Okay, I'm going to invest there 2 years, 3 years. I'm not going to get any income even as an investor, right? However, at the end of 3 years, I'm going to sell my investment to another party so I can get my money back. So let's use real estate as an example. You invest in a real estate project, no return, you struggle to build for 3 years. At the end of the third year, you get somebody to buy it off you, so you make your money on principal, which is fine, and you share the profit. But let's use technology as another example. You invest in technology transaction, so let's assume Facebook is ours, you invest in a transaction like that, and then for whatever reason, there's no return, 2, 3 years. If you're able to sell it in the future and you exit, that's good for you. Then you make a return. If you're unable to exit, if you're unable to sell at a new price in the future, then you lose all your money. As simple as that. So anything on the red side, there may not be income at all, right? And capital can even be reduced. The capital can evaporate. So let's look at debt, the black side. Now, in the case of debts, I've circled it because we're going to concentrate on debts for the asset side today. On the debt side, you have sale. Under sale, again, because of time, I'm just going to rush through all of these things, right? Under sale, you have a markup sale. It's a sale where there's a markup. It's a sale, but there's a markup. The thing is 100 naira, there's a markup of 20 naira on top of it. When you sell, you make a 20 naira profit. There's a markup. Because you're transferring debts or the risk to the obligor, it means that you're transferring your risk entirely. Somebody must pay back. The person has put down collateral, which is acceptable in Islamic finance. He has put down collateral. He has put down column Ijara or security deposit. You have mitigated all the risk as much as possible, right? So you're sure that return will come. Yeah. So what happens in COVID era? So more recently, almost every week, regulators, they always call us, hey, what's happening with your Murabaha deals? What's happening? People paying back. We're giving them concession. Maybe you have given them repayment breaks or suspension of repayment. You can't charge more. We say, we know we can't charge more. So if somebody has invested in a Murabaha transaction in a COVID era, do you then get reduced income? Again, the other slide, we're going to look at it. We're going to look at it. How do we mitigate the risk of not giving reduced income to investors, right? How do you mitigate that risk, a major risk, right? Again, it's Tisna and that has construction sale and forward sale or future delivery, if you like. They're very similar. It's just that the assets do not exist at this time. I'm not going to stress too much on that. I'm just going to use Murabaha as the benchmark for today's discussion because they're similar. Murabaha is Tisna and Salam. They're still transactions. They have similar features, very similar features. Markup is cast in stone fixed. Where the customer cannot repay, you do not charge extra, right? You cannot charge extra except if it's default price, it has to go to charity account. It cannot be earned by any of the parties. So let's go to lease. On the lease side, again, like the sales side, there's a lease where the asset is there. The lease assets, there's a markup. That markup constitutes the rentals, right? So there's fixed income, right? So for sale and lease, you can see fixed income coming in there gradually. And then we're going to relate this to the Sukuk structure very shortly, right? Why is it that in Sukuk in Nigeria, we've only been using the lease? But even under the lease, there are two broad types. Broad. One of them is just regular lease, right? Regular lease, the asset is there. The other one is Ijara Mustafa Vezema. It lives where the asset does not even exist yet. So Basheer Sukuk, 2014, the schools were not there. We didn't forward this Ijara, federal government Sukuk, 2017, 18, and 2020, the roads are were yet to be built at the time, for the two previous ones, at the time that the Sukuk went live, but again, they're supposed to exist in the future, right? They're supposed to exist in the future, right? So this structure. Now, how do you determine fixed income or expected fixed income? If my Sharia scholars will allow me to use that word, how would you determine that now, right? How do you determine a Sukuk that we're going to give you 11.2 in the case of the recent Sukuk for 2020? How do you determine it? How do you ascertain, how do you confirm that this rental is Sharia compliant? Yes, it's gone through the Sharia board, of the central bank, and they've confirmed that, okay, it's compliant. So we're going to be looking at one or two diagrams, right? I'm going to be looking at the Sukuk structure, not the federal government one this time, just trying to put in perspective for our real estate brothers, joining to see how can we create a lease structure using, of course, forward lease to aggregate real estate projects and then still give some kind of fixed income on it. Are there tax implications? What are the tax implications? In the case of Sukuk, in case of REIT, in case of equities, we're going to look at that. What are the risks in each of these instruments or application of this instrument? We're going to look at that. Let's look at services very quickly. Very quickly. Agency, Wakala, I've circled it again in blue. That's because Mudaraba as an asset can also be Mudaraba as a liability, right? And Wakala as an agent, as an asset can also be Wakala as a liability. That's why I put them in blue. So we're going to be looking at those two in the next slide, right? There's some other ones, services like Kafala and Kodastan. I'm not going to take a lot of time on them because we're not going to be touching on them there as such. Yeah, I think at some point I'm going to mention Kafala guarantee once in this slide. Yeah, but the guarantee is usually cash backed. I will illustrate it in the diagram we're going to see shortly. So there are some questions I have there. Are fixed returns allowed under Islamic finance? We're not going to answer them yet. We'll look at them subsequently. What transactions can give such fixed returns? Can partnership modes guarantee fixed income or fixed return? We described it, fertilizer case. The whole thing is in Niger. The insurance is not there. Even when it is there, yes, there's no profit, but we got that capital back. So there can be fixed return. In the case of Murabaha Musharaka, equity side, that's why it's always red. And like I mentioned, less than 10% in Nigeria becomes successful. Less than 10% becomes successful, right? Back to the second question. What transaction can give such return? We're going to go there in the next slide. Again, back to the first question. Are we going to have fixed returns? Again, by the time I explain the other slides, they explain that first question in a better format. Next slide, please. Okay, so this next slide shows that's slide 8, right? I'm actually using my own version here. Slide 8 shows an investment partnership. In the case of a deposit, not assets, in case of deposits, right? But again, if you look at, so the red arrow demonstrates the deposit side, the red arrow, while the white arrow, if you like, demonstrates the asset side, right? So a group of friends decide that they're going to invest just 100 million naira in this oil and gas transaction. They're going to give it to a financial institution, that of course has got a license to do Islamic finance or non-interest finance. And so they give the 100 million to this nice financial institution. The financial institution, I wish I can just ask this question, and that's one of the limitations, with webinars. Can we use a partnership for this, where these investors want absolute return on their investments? Okay, again, you buy the oil, they're bringing it from Norway or from Switzerland or somewhere, there's a problem, the military guys decides to take everything, from the port or wherever, or on the IEC, and the product does not get to the mainland. What happens? How do you, in the case of a Mudaraba, the money is lost. But in the case of In the case of partnership, you lose everything. The investors will lose the entire 100 million. But in the case of a sale or lease contract, again, not to make it boring, I'm going to be avoiding the Arabic terminology as much as I can, right? So sale and lease that I've talked about in the previous slide. In the case of the sale and lease contract, there'll be some return. Don't forget there's collateral. The investors have put down their property in Oniru, which is worth 120 million. So everybody is happy, right? The investors have put down extra security deposit, additional 20 million, which is sitting in the bank in the Murabaha deposits, right? Investors have given their personal guarantee. The three investors there, two gentlemen and the lady, they've given their personal guarantee. They've in fact also giving some other comfort to the financial institution that, hey guys, these are the other comforts I'm putting on the table. So there's comfort, and so we're going to buy the product, for 100 million, right? We're going to sell. The financial institution will do the business and sell it to another party for 130 million. So there's a profit of 30 million naira. The parties have agreed to share 50-50. It can be any ratio. It can be 40-60, 70-30, 10-90, as the case may be, as we like it, any ratio. What has happened in this case is that parties said, you know what, no problem, let's share 50-50. Let's be good friends. So I need to share 50-50. The profit is 30 million naira. So the investor wants their 100 million back. They also want 50% of the profit. So 50% of 30 million naira is how much? 15 million. So, at 15 million, there are some other considerations which we have in the table below. Now, so the expected profit is 30 million. If you look at the table below in gray, so based on Nigerian reality, right? Expected profit is 30 million naira. No problem, everybody's happy with it, right? Now, these investments, and there's what we call profit equalization reserve. It's a pool that was set aside, so that when we don't make expected profit, and we have a lot of that pool, that money sitting down there for a long time, we can take from it to smoothing repayment to develop to investors. So when you had the credit crunch, global economic crisis, 2008, 2009, we discovered a lot of Middle Eastern banks. They didn't have a lot of problems with their depositors. That's because they had a PR size, that's been there for 20 years, just building up. So you set aside part of your profit, just keep it there. I know one of the banks in Nigeria is about 3%. I know that in Malaysia, for example, they said to almost scrap it. They feel, hey, our economy is stable enough, we don't need PR. So they're not using it in Malaysia. They stopped more recently, right? So it's not like it's compulsory, but for unstable economies like ours, I always recommend PR. And I always recommend it to be higher than 1% or even 2%. I want to leave it at about 3% because of the volatility in that kind of economy, right? Yes, that's what I want to do. Now, PR, however, let's look at the case of a Sukuk. Sukuk where the income is fixed, which we're going to look at. Are we going to have PR there, knowing very well that the federal government of Nigeria says, hey guys, I'm going to pay you 11.2% every half year, every 180 days. Now, if the payment is guaranteed, it's based on Ijara, it's not income generating because the roads are building does not generate its own income, right? The roads they are building does not generate its own income. However, the federal government is saying we're going to pay you from another source. We'll pay you, and there's guarantees. So we're all happy. On the basis of that, it's okay. Let's not put PR for Sukuk investment or Sukuk linked or Sukuk backed investment. So I'm an institution now. I decided to buy Sukuk worth 5 billion naira. I decided to retail that Sukuk, at the lower price. It means that I don't have to put PR because it may be unnecessary, right? It could be necessary, but it may be unnecessary, right? Now, withholding tax at 10%. In case of Sukuk, is exempt from tax. So no tax again in case of Sukuk, right? In the case of REITs, real estate investment trust, in Nigeria as of today, in the case of REITs, no tax as of today, which is fantastic, right? Now, for this particular investment that we're looking at, that we're saying that expected profit is 30 million naira, and it's going to be giving ordinarily, it's going to be giving the investor 15%. In reality, by the time you take away a lot of these other costs, it will reduce what will be earned. I mean, excuse me. It's going to reduce the income. Now, so whatever is left will be shared. We're going to take PR, we're going to take away withholding tax where it is applicable. Let's look at the next slide, right? Let's move. So again, before we go to the next slide, if you look at the top right corner, you have the major risk. The major risk here for non-interest assets or transactions. The major risk is displaced commercial risk and rate of return risk. What I mean by that is, you cannot compete with the conventional in terms of pricing. In the conventional space, they are giving for bonds, until more recently, they're giving 18%. You're unable to give anything as much as that, right? And so you cannot compete in terms of the kind of return you give. Then your return is exposed to risk of not being settled, except you put, and that's why I always go for PR, except you put in place PR and others, right? So because of all of this, you're exposed to that risk. So these are the two major risks for alternative, financial institutions, right? So again, let's go to the next slide, which talks about off-balance sheet deposits, or if you like, Wakala deposits. I talked about earlier. Wakala, investment agency. That's slide 9, right? Wakala. So let's look at this quick example. Wakala is one of the contracts I love the most because it has, even though it's not assets, sorry, it's not equity, it's not debt. It's actually a service contract, like I showed in the first slide. However, it's got features of equity. It looks like equity transaction. It has as much So in case of equity transaction, the risk is very high. In the case of Wakala, the risk is very high, right? Now, for Wakala transactions, so a gentleman or a corporate, an entity says, I'm putting in so much money for you to do this transaction. It's in real estate, we like it very much. It's commonly used in Nigeria. Wakala is very commonly used by a number of, by some financial institutions, well, non-interest financial institutions. You don't have a lot of them yet, so right? And what a particular institution would use a lot of it, and what they would do is that they'll get the Wakala fund from a corporate or an individual, an HNI that's got a lot of money. They put it in a particular project, a particular real estate project on Admiralty Road, number 20, Lekki 1. Particular project, specific, restricted to that project, right? That's what they're putting it in. And when they put it in there, they now make sure that as much as possible, the contract between the financial institution and that other entity is such that, they can mitigate a lot of the risk. Again, you have problems around displaced commercial risk and rate of return risk. The financial institution structures this off their balance sheet. So it doesn't count as part of their assets, and it doesn't count as part of their liability. What they want to see is the fee income that they get. Now, fee income can be so small and can be so much. There's a lot of banking regulations around fee income, right? But they can earn the fee income, right? So the transaction gives us, we put in 2 billion in it, Now, again, I'm going to explain that slide. We're going to use this transaction for maybe Sukuk and all of that, and the ones that we prefer to use, right? So they put in this money in this transaction. The transaction is supposed to be for 18 months, At the end of 18 months, 3 billion is supposed to come back. And from that 3 billion, the bank says, hey, I'm fine with just 300 million fee. The bank is happy with that, 300 million fee. The owner of the fund says, hey, I want 700 million on my investments, Perhaps it may not be defined, It may just not be defined. Okay, sell these houses for me, and whatever they sell it for, they come up with something. Now, there's expected income there. But is it quite fixed? No, just like Murabaha and Ijara, it's not fixed, They can also be subjected to PER. Again, in case of Malaysia, you don't use it. In case of REITs, we don't bother. In case of Sukuk, we don't bother with PER. Then withholding tax also in the case of REITs and in the case of Sukuk, it may not be applicable, right? Now, 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 there could be another form of reserve, what we call IRR, investment risk reserve, right? Which is from the owner of the deposits, from the income that the owner of the deposit is expecting. So out of these 2.7 that this gentleman is expecting, we can actually set aside part of the income and keep it for him. I mean, Nigeria would not start using it. We just thought, at this time, since we are having challenges around displaced commercial risk and being able to match rate of return with conventional financial institutions, let's even just forget about IRR at this time, right? So we're not using IRR yet. I'm not aware any bank is using it at this time, but it's allowed. Maybe in the near future, when the business gets bigger and you have a lot of asset classes, then we can start to look at how best to apply IRR. Then of course, from there we arrive at our expected profits. Again, can we get fixed income, whether it's a note or a Sukuk or partnership deposit from a color transaction? The answer will be no, because it looks like a Murabaha and a Musharaka, like the investment type, like the equity type of investment. Because it looks like it means that the expected returns can be very tough here. And just like I mentioned earlier on, if the possibility of performance in the equity transaction is below 10% in Nigeria, it then means that the Wakala contract is also exposed to such. So let's look at the next slide very quickly. Slide 10. On slide 10, yes, I talked about Murabaha briefly at some point, Murabaha, markup sale. So let's start with blue boxes. There's these two blue boxes on the right-hand side, which gives you a perfect feel of a Murabaha. A Murabaha is a markup sale, right? This guy wants to buy a nice Porsche car. That's all he wants to buy. He doesn't want to do no business. He just wants to buy a car, right? So the car is 25 million naira, the financial institution says, hey, you're going to pay me back within just 1 year. That's when you're paying back. The guy agrees, I'm going to pay you within a year, installment time. The bank sells the car. So the bank buys first, and the bank sells the car to this gentleman with the bank puts 5 million on top of it. So the guy is supposed to pay back 25 million naira. So sale price, cost of car 20 million, markup 5 million. The guy pays back 25 million naira. It's 25 million. What is 5 million as a percentage of 20 million? That's 25%. So in percentage, people get confused about interest and percentage. Like percentage is mathematics. It's just simple mathematics. It has nothing to do with interest. Interest is money earned or money received on money, right? But 10%, 20%, they are is mathematics, right? So that 5 million that we're putting on top of it as the guy agrees. So what's the process? So let's look at documentation process, and where you have blue arrow going down, right? So he buys the car, the bank appoints the customer to go and buy the Porsche car, to act as agent to buy the car. He buys the car, he goes to whoever they're selling it, gets pro forma invoice. We don't give him the money, you just get the pro forma invoice, because he's just an agent. We're not giving him commission because the car is for him. So he's not getting commission for being an agent to buy his own car, right? And then the next thing is that the bank agrees, okay, we're going to buy this car for you on this deal, right? But you're going to promise to buy it back from us. So we give the customer another contract, say, promise you're going to buy it back from us. I mean, some 20 years ago, in Dubai, some guys brought in cars from, they told the bank to buy cars for them. The bank brought in the cars from, I think, South Korea. They brought in a lot of the cars into the UAE. And the guy said, but these are not the cars we wanted. No, we wanted this particular car, but the car you brought for us, no, we don't want these cars. Hey, that's serious inventory risk, serious one, right? If you like, commodity risk in some cases, right? And so rather than expose yourself as a bank to risk, simply say, hey guys, be the agent to get the car that you want, and promise to buy back. You must buy it back. You're promising to buy it back. And then the third contract is that we then sign the markup sale contract, if you like, Murabaha contracts, right? And then thereafter, the bank must have owned the asset, even if it's for 1 second, 1 day, doesn't matter. Own it without necessarily having the car parked in your garage, at 20 Marina or wherever. without having any park there, you own it because you have paid for it, you paid Mandelas, you the owner, you can then sell it to the customer, and then of course there's a sale contract at the end of the day. Now look at the return. 5 million naira is a return. That return is fixed. Now it's a risk in the COVID era because when the guy says, "Hey, but I'm a businessman, I've not worked for 2 months, I can't pay," it means that you're not going to pay anything for that 2 months. We have to push you over. There'll be no default price. So that's the risk. So even though it's expected fixed income, however, because of COVID, the guy has not worked for 2 months. Business is dull. It brings in other things, other goods or whatever. He's not doing anything. So his income has declined, right? Or they're not paying him salary in his company because he's just a consultant. He has not worked for 2 months. He's not getting his consultancy fee, right? So because his income has declined, it means that the financial institution can agree that, okay, even though there's expected fixed income, we're not going to allow you to pay. So it then means that banks may have minor challenges around reduction in income from Murabaha transactions, mainly. Also from other kind of transactions, but it's more prominent for Murabaha transactions. And by the time I get to Ijara, at least, we'll talk about that briefly also, right? So they're exposed to that risk of not being able to meet up issues around fixed income. However, don't forget to talk about PER. And don't forget that, let me use Sterling Bank as an example. Sterling Bank is piling up its PER in the last 3 years. So the money sits there. It's not part of income that you declare. It's just there in the cooler, right? So in a period like this, where repayments then becomes a challenge because the investor is expecting fixed income, you just take a grip of your PER to smoothen the repayments to customers. So you can see how fixed income can then work. So it's expected income, but even though it's expected, we have avoided to use the partnership mode of finance for this deal. We have avoided Wakala, the agency mode. We simply said on the asset side, let's go for Murabaha. Because a markup of 5 million, can you imagine this transaction? You're doing 200 of them at once, 200. And then it then becomes like a Sukuk, right? Because you're doing 200. Again, we're going to look at surveying of Sukuk using Murabaha very briefly, in the next slides, right? Where I'm going to be talking about commodity trading, notes, using Murabaha and its advantages. But again, the risk here is inventory risk. You're holding on to assets. There could be a problem. God forbid the guy dies tomorrow or something, there's a problem. You're already holding on to the inventory, whether it's in Mandelas or it's in Toyota, it doesn't matter, right? Repayment risk due to COVID, I talked about that. Takaful issues. So the takaful issue here, by takaful, I mean insurance. The takaful issue here is that who pays the takaful? So a lot of non-interest banks will say, hey, you must use takaful, not conventional insurance. And the guy says, no, but it's a Murabaha, your budget have sold to me, it's mine. The Islamic financial institution says, no, but you should still use takaful. And so you have to, the Islamic institution must be able to control the use of takaful to make sure that even though it's a Murabaha, right, a takaful, was used for the insurance, if you like, right? If you allow me to use the word insurance. Now let me move quickly. We need to move just a bit faster. Already. Let me move quickly to the next slide. Slide 11. Now I'm going to describe within the same light as Murabaha, Ijara. But if you look at the blue boxes on the right, the good thing about the Ijara is that your rental can be fixed and your rental can be floating. When it is floating, the ceiling must be defined, and that's why I said defined floating rentals. The ceiling must be defined and the bottom must be defined. Okay, I may increase my rentals by 1% every year. I may not increase it. So it must be defined. So this guy buys the property. The property is 200 million naira, in Banana Island. Just a terrace, just a unit of 200 million. It's just 4 bedroom. The guy wants to live in Banana Island. That's what he wants, right? So he buys the house for 200 million naira, right? The BQ, he likes the house so much. His wife likes it. So he buys the house and the bank says, hey, pay us just over a 1 year period. The guy is happy. His income is very good. However, we're going to sell it to you. We'll buy it and lease it to you. You're going to pay us the total the value of the asset and the rental of 250 million. So there's a fixed margin or rental of 50 million annually, assuming just for 1 year or whatever, for this asset. So if you relate that to percentage, what is it? 25%. The guy is happy. He's okay, I'm happy to do this, no problem. Now, there's this process I've listed 1 to 10, in a very simple format. The client says, I'm going to buy these assets, approach the bank appoints that person as the agent, to go and get all the documents and everything. The guy is happy. Number 3, the client submits all the required documents. Right? Number 4, the client signs a promise to lease. So the client will sign a document that, hey, bank, if you buy this house for me, I'm going to promise to lease it from you. Don't forget it's an Ijara. Ijara, a lease that ends with ownership, right? However, we can't combine the sale and the lease parts in one contract. So separate them. So the guy signs that, Then the guy will then there's also going to be another document, a promise, number 5, a promise to sell. That's going to be in the future. Also, is that document is from the bank. The bank says, no problem. This is another contract. Sign it. I'm promising that when you finish paying my 250 million naira for this banana terrace, I'm going to promise to sell this unit to you. So the guy is happy. All right. Number 6, the bank, of course, buys the house. Number 7, the vendor transfers ownership. Right. Number 8, all the other bits are done. Due diligence basically. Number 9, the client pays his rentals as and when due. At the end of the 1 year period, the bank now sells the house to the customer at what amount? Maybe 1 naira, maybe 5 naira, maybe 1,000 naira, or maybe at 0 naira, or it can just be a gift. Do you know what? You have paid for this, or you paid 250 million. The 50 million is a fixed income we're getting from it. We're enjoying, all the parties, we're happy with it. The guy is doing fixed income. He's even paying his, he's paying at once. We're not even waiting. He's not even paying every month. He's paying at the end of the 12 months because, it's all company. They're paying this big bonus every January. So because of getting that bonus, it's paying everything in January. It pays us. We're happy, right? The property becomes his, right? Now, but we have to transfer. Because don't forget that we've given him the document saying that we're promising to sell it to you. Now, from a practical banking perspective, there could be some costs. Because the property is for the bank all through the 1 year period, there could be cost of property insurance, which the bank will have to pay. So that the bank can keep that cost in one corner. So I can transfer that cost to him at the end. There could be the cost of even tenement rates, or there's a new name for it, land use charge. But that cost, the bank takes it, but the bank keeps it somewhere. So at the end of the day, it's part of the transfer cost. Maybe any other cost that comes up. For major repairs, for major repairs, it's out of the bank, which is the cost of the bank. But for minor repairs, of course, it's for the customer. Now, we can now say that for Ijara transactions, income can be fixed. It's expected, but it can be fixed to a very large extent. Now, we have realized that all the bulk of the Sukuk that we have in Nigeria, for all the Sukuk in Nigeria, they're based on Ijara. Globally, most of the Sukuk are based on Ijara, because it has adequate flexibility, to on the one hand give fixed income, right? On the other hand, even where there are some costs, it can be absorbed quite easily, right? So let's move quickly again and go to slide. So on slide 12, I'm trying to describe that. We want to talk about partnership Sukuk very quickly, very, very quickly. Don't have a lot of time. Lease Sukuk and a sale note using Murabaha, and how can you derive fixed income from all of this, right? So let's go to slide 13. On slide 13, somebody wants to buy fertilizer. He wants to use a Sukuk, right? And we want to use a partnership Sukuk. Don't forget, partnership. So if you look at the left-hand side, demand side, ABC Capital is the arranger. It brings in other agents, other financial institutions together. So it's the lead arranger, right? ABC Capital. They're the lead arrangers, right? And they're very happy to arrange this deal, right? So on the left side, there's the demand side. You're going to partnership agreement with somebody. You're going to buy this fertilizer from us. The guy agrees on the basis of Murabaha. On the supply side, the right side, they go into a musharaka, a co-ownership arrangement. Now, for whatever reason, like I explained earlier, things go bad. Maybe there's an underwriter, Scholars have agreed that even in the Mudaraba and the Musharaka, right, there can be collateral. That collateral then, you can only call on it where you can establish negligence, that the client was negligent, he did not take care of the fertilizer, and so everything, the driver was drunk and everything going into River Niger, and so he lost everything, and there was no insurance company in place. So if the bank can establish negligence, but don't forget, no income. Even if the insurance company is going to pay, maybe they're just going to pay 80% of the amount, but a careful company. So there's no income. So the question in red is, can there be fixed income in a partnership contract? No. What happens when there's a loss of capital or no profits? Unfortunately, that's the deal, right? What happens if Takaful or insurance company fails to cover losses, fire, whatever, that happens? Quite unfortunate. So that's the problem in the case of partnership transactions. If you use them for either a Sukuk or for a syndicated facility or just as a note. On the top right side, you have your major risk: investments, equity investment risk, business risk, moral hazard. Moral hazard, the guy is just not a nice guy, so, you can walk away, you can take a walk, in a Musharaka Murabaha transaction. Whether it's a regular asset, whether it's syndication, whether it's cook, so there can be no fixed income of any sort. Whether there's COVID or there's no COVID, the point is that the guy was negligent. Assuming the bank did not take collateral or is not properly registered, so they can call on it where there is negligence, then the money is lost. So that means that whoever has deposited specifically into a Mudaraba or Musharaka assets loses the entire money. Nobody in the world wants to lose their money, no matter the love they have for Islam or Islamic finance. And so globally, scholars have argued in favor of Sukuk that perhaps some scholars have gone against that though. That in the case of Sukuk, how about if the parties confirm a minimum return? That, okay, on the minimum, we're going to give you this return. Then if it's more, we're going to share it. Again, a lot of scholarly arguments around that. In this part of the world, we decided that, okay, let's not even bother ourselves with this scholarly debate, and let's limit our Mudaraba and Musharaka transactions. On the banking side, there are loads of other rules around it. IFSB, Islamic Financial Services Board, they have regulation around it, which makes you, the financial institution, to make provision from your capital. You need a lot of provision. I don't want to go into technicalities at this time, and that limits the number of Mudaraba and Musharaka you can have. And when you do that, it means you're exposed to loss of capital and loss of income. Next slide, number 14. So slide 14, this I'll say is my favorite of a lot of the Islamic finance transactions. But again, I decided to put this slide, together, and I decided to tailor it to real estate because I'm aware some, viewers are in the area of real estate. I thought, hey, let's have something for us, for those of us that love real estate so much. So let's look at number 1 on this slide 14. So we're using a forward lease model contract to design a Sukuk, right? But this Sukuk is for real estate. Now, if a real estate developer goes to a bank, either conventional or Islamic bank in Nigeria, they're going to ask you for all your off-tickers. They're going to ask you for your 3-year financials, your MyMen account. If you want to do a Sukuk, you're going to need to have some kind of rating, it's rated by some kind of rating agency, at least a local one. They don't have it. Most of the time, the financials, for whatever reason, they've been undermined. The capital is just 1 million naira or just 5 million naira. So in reality, a lot of the real estate companies just cannot organize a bond or a Sukuk, or even a REIT, real estate investment trust. And so we thought, you know what, let's have a good guy. Let's have a good guy here. Let's have a company called TB Financial Group. TB Financial Group says, hey, I'm going to set up an SPV called TB Real Estate Sukuk Company, or SPV. That SPV, special purpose vehicle, right? Because, it has to be off the balance sheet. So we put in a special purpose vehicle, right? That special purpose vehicle, says, hey, real estate developers, guys, let me supply you, let's agree on a contract. Give me 25 billion worth of houses, within the next period. And they agreed. So 20 developers, or let's just say 20 of them, they want average of 1 billion each. They can't get from anywhere, right? And so aggregate them, 20 developers, put together, they agree that they're going to agree on a lease contract whereby they're going to pay back 25 billion. So that agreement is in place, promise to buy back, from the real estate developers, the agreement between real estate developer and the SPV. The SPV goes into action. Okay, let's get. We're not a popular brand, so because of that, let's quickly get someone to guarantee these bond for us. In case of federal government guarantees it. In case of federal government Sukuk, the federal government guarantees. Everybody knows that federal government must pay, even though they are servicing their debt with about 75% of their income right now. Whichever way, all prices will go up. They can borrow more money. They can pay. Whichever way, So the Sukuk that they have done is not income generating. They must have to pay it from whatever means, right? That's fine. In this case, it's an income generating forward lease Sukuk model, whereby the income is generated from the sale of the housing units, right? So what's going to happen? So what's going to happen here is that this TB SPV says infra credits. Infra credits, they guarantee, they give guarantees. Give us guarantee. Infra credit wants 2% fee. So can I have a problem? We'll give you 2% fee. Everybody's happy. We'll give it to you after raising the money. Infra credit agrees, sign a document. Infra credit says, hey guys, I can only give you 50% of the guarantee of this 20 billion that you want to raise. So they're happy, no problem. Now, the SPV approaches their originator, or their principal and say, Mr. TB Financial Group, okay, we need more guarantees so people can have confidence in this bond, so we can have better rating, so we can enhance it. And so that's not a problem. We have this investment in ABC Capital in Dubai. We have the investment in dollars, right? So because we have the investment, because that investment is sitting with them, and ABC Capital in Dubai is, I'm not using real names, please. I'm not using real names. ABC Capital in Dubai says, hey, because you have this money with us, in dollars, we're going to grant you a kafala, a guarantee, because it's backed by cash. You don't have to pay for it. So guys are happy. So TB Financial Group is happy, and then they get a guarantee. But this guarantee this time around is not. It's at zero fee, and that's because it's a kafala under Islamic finance. Kafala is supposed to be a kind of free service, if you like. There are extreme cases. I won't go there for now because of time. So they go there, they get guarantee for the remaining half. That gives confidence. That enhances this Sukuk transaction. Everybody's happy. And because of that, investors put in money. They raise the money. Number 6, mobilize 20 billion from a forward lease contract, right? They pass the money to the SPV, and the SPV gives the money, number 8, to the real estate developers, based on the forward lease contract, like I mentioned earlier on. Now, these real estate developers, just like, at the end of the day, they've agreed to pay 25 billion. That 25 billion is gives you a return of about 25%. Assuming the rent is supposed to be for a 2-year period. So everybody's happy. Now, what returns? So number 9.9. What returns goes to the investors? The investment for 2 years. The developers are dropping 25%, rentals for the entire 2 years. It means that investors can get 12.5% per annum, as a fixed income, because we have decided to use fixed rental Sukuk, fixed rental forward lease Sukuk, right? So because we're using that, we can then say, hey guys, don't forget we have enhanced credit with infra credit and EB capital in Dubai. So because of that, everybody puts in money, there's a profit of 5 billion, right, on this transaction in a 2-year period, and we all share it, right? Now, there's some extreme cases that happen around the world, even in Dubai itself, where you structure a transaction so well, and for whatever reason, developer does not, it's not complete. There's performance risk, which I put up there. So performance risk, repayment risk, there are 2 major risks in this transaction. For whatever it did not finish up in good time, are you going to tell those who have invested that, hey guys, you have to wait for another, hey, there's guarantee in place. The guys have guaranteed, they take that risk. That then becomes a problem. Because what has happened is that you have transferred your own risk to somebody else in the case of infra credit and ABC capital, right? In some other instances around the world, we've seen cases where they will finance We don't like to use the word refinance, but it can be applicable in Islamic finance sometimes. We like to use the word replace. We're taking existing assets as conventional, right? But in this case, we are refinancing because the guys have not delivered. Yeah, because they've not delivered, it then means that we need to get money from another set of investors to pay all these investors at this time. And that has happened in some other jurisdictions, especially for real estate transactions, so that investors can get their money back and get the profit that they want. Now let me move very quickly. I'm rounding up. Let me move very quickly so we can go to questions. Now the next slide is that slide 15. Is on metal trading notes or private sukuk. So ABC Bahrain decided that let's create a dollar facility in the market. In the Islamic banking space, we don't have any of such at this time. Now let's create a dollar facility. Either it comes in the form of a note, in form of a syndication, or in form of a sukuk, a private sukuk. Let's assume it's a sukuk. Don't forget that it's Murabaha. In Murabaha, there's always this markup, right? But guess what has happened? Now you invest in this, but what has happened is that there cannot be a secondary market. That's one of the problems. Don't forget in the beginning, I talked about uncertainty. You cannot trade in Islamic finance. Your receivables, the money you're expecting, you cannot trade that money. And you cannot do transactions using the money. So you're expecting rent of 1 million naira. You now use that 1 million naira you have not received to do trade transactions. It's not allowed in Islamic finance. So in this case, unfortunately also, Sharia scholars have not approved, any of the refinancing, propositions for Murabaha transactions, for upstate transactions. So Murabaha is not usually best for Sukuk. Not that they're not good, that you cannot do secondary market transactions on it. You cannot refinance, you cannot trade receivables and all of that. You are exposed to commodity and inventory risk. You're exposed to repayment risk, especially during COVID, like I mentioned earlier on. When there's a break in repayment, you're exposed to risk. Let's look at this case. Let's assume everything is fine. ABC Bahrain, they give $10 million to XYZ Capital, LIBOR plus 4, LIBOR. So let's just accept LIBOR. London Interbank offer rates for this period. During the time, Islamic scholars and practitioners come up with a final version of their benchmark rate, right? LIBOR plus 4, and then XYZ Capital gets this money, gives it to traders, and make a return of LIBOR plus 8, right? Within the 1 year period, and then they return number 4A. They return the 10 billion back to ABC Bahrain, and they give them back their LIBOR plus 4. There's a back-end transaction from ABC Bahrain that have not do that. It's also keep it very simple, right? But let's just assume that ABC Bahrain has the money. How they have structured that money back end. We decide not to bring in that complexity here, right? At the end of the day, ABC Bahrain gets LIBOR plus 4. You can say there's a fixed rate. There's a fixed rate of plus 4, LIBOR plus 4. So they get a profit. So anybody that's invested in this transaction, gets something. Don't forget that XYZ Capital, they're making LIBOR plus 8. So again, fixed return, again, expected. So I'm silent on tax and all of the other costs there. And of course, in the COVID era, anything can destabilize it. And so must have PAR on the one hand, and perhaps IRR on the other hand, to mitigate this expected return, so that as much as possible, you smoothing the repayment. So XYZ Capital makes a spread of 4%. So again, fixed income has come in there. Now let's move very quickly. We need to round up. Fixed income from equities. This is my last slide. Now, so the question is equities. Can we make fixed income from equities? I'm going to start with the green part, the major risk, right? The first risk is market volatility. Market fluctuates. You don't have control over it. Every day I listen to stock market news and all of that, and you just cannot determine the yield curve. It's so difficult. So it fluctuates. Number one. Number two, I think I didn't mention that here. The screen equities, which we're going to talk about, they're very limited, in the Islamic banking space, globally and of course in Nigeria. In Nigeria, they are barely 10, 15. Very few, either listed or unlisted, right? So the other point is, if it were a REIT, real estate investment trust, it's better structure because they're backed by real estate, right? And so, so So what then needs to happen is to conclude, right? To conclude is that for you to enjoy fixed return on equities, it cannot just be equities in that portfolio. It has to be a portfolio of asset classes, right? Where you have real estate in it, you can have Sukuk in it, other assets in it, so that even where equities remain very volatile, the returns from all the other fixed income assets, can be used to smoothen your repayment, including, of course, the PER, right? So that should be the concluding note. So let's run through equities very quickly after looking at the concluding note, right? So we have agreed that equities cannot give you fixed return, no doubt about that. Whether it's Sharia compliant or it's not Sharia compliant, your income will keep, God forbid there's a bomb blast somewhere in Apapa or Lagos, or equities will just slash. We're so happy that during this COVID era, the effect has been very minimal, which is fantastic, right? So, but again, what are the features of screened equities? Number one, we take away financial institutions, conventional. We take away, the pork and alcohol companies. We take away all of these companies from it. We take away those companies that does or that are involved in nominations. That's first level screening. We now say, okay, we now have a set of companies. We're very happy. Now we have not picked a company. I don't want to mention names. We pick a company that they just make bottles, for example, or they just make water. And this company, there's nothing wrong with water. We can all invest in water, right? They make water bottles, right? They're fine. However, this company, they also make a bit of beer, beer. But the income they get from beer is just 5% or less. So let's agree we can invest in them. So the income they get from making beer, which is a small subsidiary of the water company, is just 5%. Okay, Sharia scholars say, okay, let's invest there, even though we're going to set aside part of our income into a charity account, in the near future. Now, but this company also, they have bought federal government bonds, not Sukuk. They bought bonds. The bulk of their money, more than 30% of it, has been used to buy bonds or has been invested in conventional banks. Then we cannot invest in it, even though they just make water. So we agree that, okay, only 5% or less is what they make from beer, from their beer business. However, they have also bought bonds because they couldn't find Islamic securities to buy. So because they bought so many bonds, above 30%, then we can't invest in it. So different countries try to tweak these laws. Sharia scholars have accepted these tweaks. These financial benchmarks, if you like, right? Again, they have debt. They are paying interest. That debt is more than 30%, of their market cap. Of course, they also can invest in them. So these are financial screens, aside others. There's a third level of screening, which is for the fund manager to say, okay, these guys, they make water, they're fine, but we think there's a problem. They're about to be acquired, right? And there's a problem in future, or there's a tussle in top management or whatever. Because of all of this, we are agreeing that we're not going to invest. So all of these problems has limited the number of equities that we can invest in. On the global space, Islamic equities are reduced because of all of these screening formula, if you like. And then, of course, even from of course, in Nigeria, it's tiny. The universe is small. Now, let me talk about REIT, real estate investment trust. REITs are unique, and so the screening formula for REITs is quite different. The non-permissibility part of it, scholars have agreed that where the REITs, assuming the REIT structure is just one big high-rise in the core Atlantic, just one high-rise, that's the only asset that they have, and they're collecting rent. And because of that rental income, that's what they're going to use to determine what they will pay to owners or to investors in the REITs. A REIT is a form of equity, but of course, it's backed by real estate, by assets. Now, but guess what? In that building, out of the 20 floors, out of the 100 floors, let's assume it's 100 floors, right? Out of the 100 floors, 20 of those floors, they're being used by conventional banks, 20 of the floors. Sharia allows us, depending on the Sharia scholars in those institutions, they allow that if 20 floors or 20% of that portfolio is not compliant, let's still invest in it. On that note, I'll just stop here and take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mutiat, over to you. Hello, Mutiat, are you there?
Hello,
oh, you're back. Alaikum salam. Please go ahead with the questions. So that
we're going to move to the question and answer now. The first question that we're taking, and this one we're taking it because it is the person is questioning the entire Islamic finance structure and the eligibility of it. Okay, question. Please excuse me. Okay, good. So the question asks, my question for the presenter, don't you think that the whole edifice of Islamic finance is built around the use of halal to circumvent the haram around riba? Hello, sir. Doctor, should I take it again?
No, I understand. I can take it. Let me take it quickly. Okay, so okay, yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, the good thing is that question comes in every time. So I mean, so let's attempt to answer the question. Because I decided not to go too much into the religious books, so I decided not to bring the core foundation out, of the entire storyline around interest, and that's why I just kept it very simple and said what is prohibited is money and money itself. When you buy and sell, you buy a lot of phones and sell them. You buy a lot of cars and sell them. You buy a lot of houses and sell them. It is Sharia compliant. And so the principal thing, what we spend a lot of time on when we're giving lectures in these areas, or where we're trying to convince our colleagues to understand Islamic finance, we start with the definition of money. Because again, so it then allowed me to go into those definitions from classical texts. Money has four functions taught us in economics when we're in school: means of value, means of deferred value, means of store of wealth, and of course means of exchange. Islamic. So when money was gold or silver, yes, that was correct. But we have argued clearly that now the money is not backed by gold or silver. Money is just paper. It doesn't have any worth. And because it doesn't have any worth, there's no intrinsic value anymore. And so scholars have agreed that money is just a means of exchange. Whether that money is digital or whether we're using pen as money or whatever we're using as money, as long as the purpose is just a means of exchange, and there's no problem with it, right? So the core is the definition of which are destabilized the entire proposition around capitalism to a very large extent. And again, I don't want to go too much into details, but I've actually did my entire PhD defining money, to a very large extent. So, rather than go on and on, I'll just quickly borrow one or two things. These are the goldsmiths who were giving receipts. They were giving receipts for they were giving receipts to the goldsmiths, or the goldsmiths were giving receipts to people. And so, because of the confidence in receipts, proposition around money was changed. And the backing of money to gold, was delinked. Of course, 1913, Federal Reserve Bank, 1931, Bank of England, 1971, globally, and of course, Islamic Development Bank emerged 74, 75, to correct all of this. And scholars around the world agreed that when you are spending money, any money on that money itself is not allowed. Just a thin line. And that's why the Quran also made it clear that trading is allowed. Trading. You buy something for 100 naira, you sell for 200 naira, you sell for 150 naira, you sell for 10 naira, not a problem. What is not allowed is when you give money to somebody and you get more money back. That's what the problem is. So money cannot be a commodity as a rule in Islamic finance. That's the foundation of Islamic finance. And so what we have done in a lot of academic research is that we have developed loads of bodies around propositions, right? Those of write-ups around this definition of money. In fact, very recently, a book came out last week. I was a part of that book. It's called Integral to Islamic Finance, a Semiotic Approach. What we have done in that book, it just new, just came out last week in the UK. What we have done in that book is to bring in, one of the major writers is a Jew, right? A Jew professor. We have brought him in, two reverend fathers that are, of course, in academia, those that, of course, they have their unique beliefs. We have congealed, the knowledge of the interest-based economy, and have agreed on a common position, right? So again, it's really a book to grab. I think I won't just go further than that. But again, as a definition, money on money is what we don't accept. But when you buy and sell, or you buy and lease, and you make profits, it's allowed. Thanks. I'll take next
Okay,
question.
so hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, so
to
the question now, we are not trying to circumvent anything. What is haram is clear, and that has been defined. I hope that answers your question. So the next question we are moving on to is the person is asking, how is Sukuk and other fixed income Islamic financial assets different from interest earning conventional financial assets? I believe that your last answer has answered that, but if there's any more clarifications, sir.
Okay, yeah, just like you said. So in case of a conventional bond, for example, say the federal government issues a bond, they raise the money. The money can be used to pay salaries, can be used for anything at all. In the case of Sukuk, the money is backed to that asset. So if the federal government, so they name 150 billion naira, if they get offer for 250 billion, they can return 100 billion. They only need 150 billion to fix those roads. And so they stop there, right? So you are matching the liability, the money, with the asset on the table, So the money cannot be used to pay those in National Assembly or to service other loan that the government has got. No, it has to be used for the purpose for which it was mobilized for. As simple as that. So again, conventional bonds are basic debts. Can be used for anything. Islamic, in case of Sukuk, they are matched to those assets. They are for those specific purposes. And of course, like I said, the underlying contracts are Sharia compliant. The money is not earned on money. So the money must be used to do something. And then, so somebody asked the question one time. I get that question all the time also. What do I mean by non-income, by the fact that the money is coming from another source? I simply give a rather simple answer. So you bought a car. This car that we showed the other time, Porsche car, nice one, you like it. You bought the car is 20 million, you're paying 25 million naira. However, you're not using the car to do Uber, because you cannot even use 25 million naira car to do Uber. You're using the car to go to work and take your family out, to nice places, but you're paying your rentals from your salary or from your business. That makes that transaction not to be income generating. The income from the repayment of that car is coming from your salary. It's not coming from the use of that asset, which is allowed in Islamic finance. So yeah, so the Sukuk I described there is the type that will be income generating. The one the federal government has done, which is also allowed, is not income generating, and so the income comes from another source, which is also allowed. Even generally under project finance, an acceptable concept. Yeah.
Okay. So this next question is on agri, and the person is asking, I would like to ask on Islam's position on fixed income investment like farm crowding, farm funded, and the likes, which are investment in farming with a fixed return at the end of the tenure.
Okay, a very good question. So there's a part I talked about I think my very first slide, where I said where any product or any concept or any process that has not been termed as Sharia compliant, it's not Sharia compliant, or that has not been validated by the advisory committee of experts or the Sharia board, cannot be compliant, right? So, and that's when we look at the Murabaha. When I was explaining Murabaha, markup sale, I put the process there. The first contract, you're actually appointing as an agent. The next contract, you're filling the promise to purchase, contract. The next contract is a Murabaha contract. The next contract is a sale contract. If it doesn't follow that sequence, then there's a problem. It's not compliant. The process can make it non-compliant, right? Now, in the case of a lot of these transactions, I don't want to call their names because I may know them well too. As long as there's no Sharia board, they are certified that their practice is Sharia compliant, source of funds to a very large extent, and the contract that allows them to use it is Sharia compliant, not Sharia compliant. Think about the fact that even something as simple as current account, you want to keep your 20,000 naira with the bank, and you want to be able to collect that money back whenever, is backed by a contract. In Nigeria, we usually use a call-that's contract. Without that contract, and in fact, even before the contract, you notice there that the financial institution there that this contract has been approved by the advisory expert. That's what makes it Sharia compliant. So anything that does not have the seal of the is not compliant. Even for the Sukuk, federal government Sukuk, the CBN is, or phrase in this case, they have to certify it that is compliant. Without that, you cannot call it a Sukuk. Yeah.
Okay. So is this saying that all the farm crowding things are not Sharia compliant?
That's what I'm saying.
Because I particularly would like to be sure. I saw one that I'm interested in.
On a better note, there's a time that people were investing in all these, oil and gas transactions. You don't know where the oil and gas is. More recently, about real estate transaction. And I told you, it's so funny. Even some of my colleagues, they invest. I'm like, God, these things they are against the principles of Islamic finance. There's uncertainty, there's gambling, and everybody wants to invest. I'd never bothered to invest in any of these things, but I was sure that they're not compliant. A lot of them lost
because
their money.
You have a PhD. We don't. I saw somebody selling goats, and they are collecting money, and I thought a goat is halal now. I should be able to invest in goats. And they're not asking for too much. I can.
So what we try to do and to encourage is that a lot of smaller institutions, communities, they can actually form a small clique. If you like, a cooperative whereby they can start to adopt that compliance process.
Okay.
Muslim bodies, cooperatives, associations, that can be very helpful. So that that transaction, that good transaction. Let me give one example. So there's riba in the Quran. There's also riba in the hadith. There are some other ribas I've not talked about today. So you're driving on the expressway, and somebody is selling. What do they sell? This person is selling a book. I see this book. I want to buy this book. And the person agrees. Okay, pay 2,000 naira. The guy started from 5,000. He said no, 2,000. And you agreed to pay 2,000 naira. And after agreeing, you want to pay, your wife tells you that no, it will take 1,005. I now tell the person that no, 1,005. The person said that transaction is not right. You can't do it. When I exchange my two lovely shirts or old shirts for one of your lovely kaftan, that transaction is riba. It's not Sharia compliant. So there are these classified riba in several forms, that I've not even talked about today. So what I've just done today is to look at the monetary riba, right? So there are loads of other transactions that are riba based and they are not compliant.
Okay. So we move on to the next question because we can't take every question. Apologies to everyone. The next one is asking, I need clarification on investment whereby resources were put together by individuals for a business and fixed percentage of the invested amount is paid monthly as a return on investment. The only loss aspect is non-payment of monthly returns if the business did not operate for that month. The invested amount still remains if any person wants to pull out. I don't know if that is clear.
No, I think I have an idea. I know a lot of people try to put money together, they give to somebody, the person will give them some kind of return and all of that.
I think that's the kind of the goats investment I was talking about. That's quite something similar. Give them money and then every month they will pay us back.
Yeah.
Except maybe.
I'm trying not to be too Islamic in this discussion, but you're going to allow me to the hadith very quickly. Azuba, one of the Sahabas, Azuba used to go to him and say, hey, Azuba, I want to give you money to hold for me. You know, I want to give you money, just hold this money for me. You want to be followers of the prophet. And Azuba would say, hey, if you're going to give me money to hold for you, give me this money on the basis of code. So what I was saying, but I want to give you this money on the basis of wadia, safekeeping. Other guys I want to give money on the basis of amana, which is trust. If somebody goes to Azuba and keeps his 100 camels, on the basis of amana, trust, and there's COVID, and COVID, affects all of them, that person is not under any obligation to return those 100 camels on the basis of amana, on the basis of trust. If it's on the basis of court, interest-free loan, he's under obligation to return, those camels. And so that's what I'm saying, that for every transaction, even if it's based on casual relationships, there needs to be some document. Don't forget, in the Quran, when Allah finished everything about riba, the next verse, that everybody must write, and let nobody not agree to write, and let there be 2 witnesses, right? Immediately you're done with the topic around riba and shura to bakra, the next verse that followed was around contracts. You must document. So for transactions as simple as I want to do cow business together, or do ram business together, people must do a simple contract and get an expert to certify that this contract is fine. It doesn't have to be 30 pages or 10 pages we do in the bank. It can just be a page, but the features of a court or a mudaraba or a wakala will be injected in that simple contract, and that's strict compliance. And everybody stand by it with 2 witnesses.
Okay. So somebody is asking that, can we create a regulatory support body to support and serve as Sharia advisors to these small and informal Islamic finance cooperatives and associations?
Okay,
if we have, or is there one available now? And if there is, could you share the details with us?
Thank you very much. So, in other countries, in the Middle East, and even in the UK, they have companies, just like accounting firms or law firms. It's a company, Sharia scholars. They have them in those countries. But the central bank in their regulation says, no, we don't want you to use such companies. Maybe they want to give the opportunities to Sharia scholars to develop capacity in this area, right? So we don't have that in Nigeria. However, even if we choose to have that now, you may not be able to use them for products that needs to be approved by the central bank or SEC or NICOM or PENCOM, right? Because they don't accept companies or Sharia scholars, right? However, other countries have done them where there's nothing wrong there, except want to have an informal approach to it, to say, okay, and that's why I say for communities, for associations, they can have a set of scholars that will develop capacity for understanding the Quran or the Hadiths, or the works or the Al-Mu'at of Imam Maliki and co. It may not be sufficient. We need to also be able to relate it to banking, to financial services as much as possible. So yes, if we're going to have such, unfortunately, the formal financial institution will not be able to use them. However, they can serve other communities, other associations and individuals. Yes.
Right. Well, the question in particular was saying to support the small scale informal cooperatives.
Yeah. So I think if you support them, yeah, that's fine. I think it's nice to have experts. In fact, maybe we should start considering having digital experts, digital Sharia scholars. We should have even in the digital space whereby you're going to have these scholars. You can put in your questions, send your contract, and then we can get them approved. They can concord to them, but again, they won't be used for regular bank, but they'll be used for informal transactions. And maybe a few of us will have to, after this program, it should be like deliverable at the end of this program, to work with all our other brothers and sisters here and there to come up with, if you like, a company of Sharia scholars to serve the informal sector. I think it will be better. We'll make it as digital as possible. Yeah.
Okay, so inshallah. Mr. Aziz and Mr. Sukuk and Mr. Shuaib, please take note of that. Moving on to the next question. It says, is the rental paid to the investors?
Sorry, Mutiat. Actually, I didn't get that. It's challenge. Let him state it again. I didn't get that challenge.
Said that, I believe he said that after this class, we may need to consider setting up a virtual scholar committee that would support all the small businesses who want to crowdfund and do something like this. Right,
Okay,
Dr. Oshodi? Did I?
Yeah, that's it. Informal sector. Yeah,
That's,
the informal sector.
yeah. To support the informal
I'm
sector,
saying this as a person.
because
I'm speaking in my personal capacity. I'm not speaking as a banker, or I'm just speaking my personal capacity. And of
as
course,
a
Personal
part of
capacity.
this community, as a part of our community.
We'll consult you as a mentor then. We'll consult you. We'll get back to you on that.
No, we are making him chairman of the committee.
I'm not a Sharia
Okay,
scholar.
so,
I'm just a banker.
and you know Sharia scholars now, we'll bring everybody together, inshallah, because this is something that we need to take, consider more, think, particularly because a lot of us are doing it or about to do it. And mashallah, thank you so much for bringing light to this. So definitely taking it to the next level will be helpful to everyone. So the next question is the rental paid to the investors still halal if at the end of the tenure, the project is not completed? I think they are talking about the Sukuk, the federal government Sukuk.
Yes. Okay, so
Hello,
what
sir.
happened in this case is that, yeah, I'm with you. So the question is, the rental to investors still allow if they don't finish that project, right? Okay, so
Yes,
let's look at something quite practical. There are cases around the world where after some, as we're supposed to be a 5-7 year project, at the end of 4 years or 5 years, the SPV, we call out the investors or their reps and say, hey guys, there's a problem here. And because of 1 or 2 or 3 reasons, we are unable to do 50 roads, but we're only going to be able to do 30 roads. We're going to have to adjust and do 30 roads. So we can raise another bond. Maybe there's inflation, hyperinflation or whatever, economic, indicators that may have crept in. And so because of that, they say, okay, we want to adjust it this way. Or we're supposed to build 20 schools, but we can only build 12 schools, Yeah, so there could be such cases in real life. And like I mentioned much earlier, there are cases where, for whatever reason, there's a refinancing to get more money, to take away the old investors and bring in the investors. Such case can also arise. But again, because the facility has been enhanced by the federal government guarantee, and don't forget, like I gave you an example of a car, this man is still collecting salary. He must pay for the use of that car. Even if that car is a write-off the next day, the car is no more there. He's not using it anymore. There's a write-off, there's an accident, God forbid. He can't use the car anymore. He's had to sell it to somebody or give it out. But he's still under obligation to pay the financial institution for the use of for the facility, even though the asset is no longer existing, right? So yeah, these are extreme cases. And that's why, again, like I said, in the case of debt, we accept collateral, and the Prophet borrowed money from a Jew or sort of bought food from a Jew and dropped his armor as collateral. So scholars agreed that collateral are acceptable. So the guy that bought the car, he has given collateral. The case of federal government, they've given guarantee from the federal government. Because of that guarantee, whether they finish the road or not, they're under obligation to pay the rentals.
Okay. What if the government couldn't get the funds to repay the investors their capitals at the end of the tenure?
So like I said, so I mean, at some point, we're looking at global sukuk around the world, trying to see whether we can invest, and we have excess FX and all of that. And so in the process, we realize that sovereign sukuk around the world, they have lower pricing, but because they are guaranteed by the sovereign, they look very good. So the bank said, no, we like sovereign sukuk. And private sukuk, they're not guaranteed by the sovereign, because they're private. Maybe there's an impact credit or somebody that's guaranteed it, or another institution that's guaranteed it. Their pricing is better, the expected return is a lot more. But we agree in the bank that, okay, you know what? There's a sovereign sukuk, because sovereign is guaranteed. The state will have to pay. They have reserve in the US. Don't forget, there are reserves. Nigeria has still got some huge reserves, so they'll have to pay. So and that's why when I gave the model on private sukuk, I was particular about enhancing that credit, if you like, with 2 forms of guarantees. The one with infra credits, and the one with the Dubai institution, that's cash backed, right? So all the time there'll have to be some kind of guarantee that will ensure that there's repayment. Sovereigns generally they only go by except there's war, God forbid, you know, where the economy fails completely, you know, in such extreme cases. Yeah, there could be, you know, but you know, that's why Islamic scholars or practitioners will always still refer to income as expected income, just to take care of extreme cases. Again, like I said, there's guarantee, there's special funds here and there, and in case of the bank, you know, there's PER and IRR sometimes to take that risk. Yeah.
Okay, so the agri questions have come back again, but before we go there, I would ask this one. My question border around the difference between rental payment to investors of Sukuk bonds and interest payment to investors in other fixed income and corporate bonds.
So if I get the question right, difference between rental in the case of Sukuk and interest in the case of a regular facility. The thin line, you know, so you know the prophet again, you know, because of a lot of our other friends, I try not to use too much of the Quran that is, but I have to put there now, you know. These are the prophets, people, you know, when they say there was no riba, you shouldn't take riba, you shouldn't take interest, you know, and that trading was allowed. And people were just wondering, what do you mean? I did the same thing. You know, I buy this phone for 200 naira and I sell for 300 naira. What's the difference between, you know, between that and when I simply, you know, give out money and collect more money? And so the Quran, the verses of the Quran were revealed that interest is not allowed in simple, explicit, clear terms. That interest is not allowed, but trading is allowed in very simple terms. So in the same vein, where the renter, where is the transaction where, of course, you know, you buy the assets, you follow the process I described, you buy it at the bank, you buy the car from the Mandelas, the car is for the bank, you now lease it to another party. That process is what makes it compliant. You know, we are not giving money to the guy that wants the car. You know, you have paid Mandelas directly. Even though the agent, the person that wants the car, that is the agent, has brought the performer invoice. You have verified the performer invoice, you know, through some other parts or the control guys in the bank. You have verified that truly the car is 20 million naira, and then you buy it first. By buying it first and selling it makes Sharia compliant. By giving money to the guy to go and buy it makes it non-compliant. So just a process thing. Is that process? And that's why I kept saying product, proposition, or process, or processes. You know, those are the things that must be compliant. When the process is not compliant, there's a problem. If you sign the sale contract before the promise to purchase contract, it is not compliant, even within Islamic finance itself. If you sign one contract before the other, there's a problem. You know, so in the case of rental, you buy and use. In the case of interest, you give a facility and collect interest. They're different. So the Quran made that very clear. Interest is not allowed, but sales, you know, buying and selling is allowed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So the question, we're back. I think the last two questions we're going to take are just similar. We want clarity on this, Agric. And one of my guys is asking is, are you saying that Agric investment is not Sharia compliant because they don't have Sharia advisors to satisfy it as such, or that it's not what Muslims should invest in? Or is it that we shouldn't invest in Agric? And in the same vein, the last question from my team says that, please educate me on Islamic ruling on investment in a Greek company with a fixed return. I think we talked about that earlier, but we just want you to close this with clarity on whether it is halal to invest in a Greek or not.
Okay, so, you know, I mean, the reality is that every transaction is allowed, except, you know, it's clearly stated or it clearly doesn't meet certain rules that makes them non-compliant. So I give an example of, when I talk about equities, somebody, what they do is they produce water. Of course, water is allowed. These guys buy houses. Houses are allowed. Houses that you want to live in. You know, somebody wants to make roads. They're allowed. You know, guy is making solar system is allowed. You know, all these transactions are allowed. But the process to finance them can be a process that is not compliant, that is not allowed. You know, and that's why I said, and so in case of agri, and that's why, of course, we identified a major gap now. And so that's a gap we're going to all work on to say the informal sector, so are you saying that my grandmother used to sell drinks many years ago in Lagos Island? Are you saying that that transaction, selling Coke or selling malt, am I saying that my grandmother's transaction is not allowed? She buys from Coca-Cola directly, she sells to whoever wants to buy, they pick it up, they pay her plus a markup, and she's fine. In reality, is that what we're saying now is that because of now the need to further certify, because I cannot really know if a transaction is allowed. Assuming my grandmom had, other investment and they're in bank shares, for example, and it's from that company. Okay, I know she didn't have that. Assuming it's from that company, and she had bank shares, and all her money or 50% of her money is in bank shares. It means that that transaction is not allowed because of the shares she has in conventional banking, right? Because of maybe she had shares in federal government bond or T-bills, it means they're not, and it's from that company, it means that I cannot do business. So those are the exceptions. That's what I was talking about from my men. I highlighted, the three screening methods that we're using. So again, I think the assignment for us, and again, I'll be happy to champion that, bringing all the parties together with technology and everything that we need to have that, if you like, virtual Sharia platform that people can just, it may be at zero cost, so people can just, put in their question, and then there's an online Sharia team that can get back and say, no, this is fine, or these are the minor corrections you have to. Don't forget that in the bank, we have an internal Sharia advisor in the bank. We have Sharia compliance guys. We have Sharia lawyers, but despite that fact, we still have to pass it to the Sharia board. The Sharia board, we try our best, but can't just please advise us still. So you can only try, really. So I will say that there's a challenge there. Sometimes, what a lot of our friends do, they just share transaction with some of us. To say, these are transactions, that we want to do. Can you just advise? And we can just really give them advice, just to, make it compliant enough. And again, another thing about compliance, and I always say it, is either 100% or 0%. There's no 99, there's no 80, there's no pass mark of 50. No, under Sharia. If it's not 100%, it is 0%. And that becomes also a very difficult position. So the last question is Islamic rules. Agri, again, like I said, agri is allowed, water business, furniture business, everything is allowed. But the process, somebody came to me and said, oh, I want to buy Mara Okada, I'm doing hire purchase. Hire purchase by its nature combines sale and lease contracts together, right? Because it combines two contracts, even though it's hire purchase, even though it's Mara Okada, it's not compliant. Because you're saying that, okay, use it and then you become the owner at some point. And so to make it compliant, we then have to separate the contract. There's a lease contract to run its course. After running its course, a sale contract to come at the end. So something as simple as that. How much more people doing Uber? You give the car to somebody, use it for 5 years, pay me so much amount, it becomes yours. And Uber itself is not the problem, but the process to arrive, to arrive or to agree, that agreement, that process is not compliant. So it becomes non-compliant. Even though the guy has given Uber, has gotten his money or has not gotten his money, but there's a gap. And that's why, again, that advisory role is very important. Again, the short term, depending on the time we set up this virtual team, in the short term, you can share with a number of us just to quickly give a brief. And again, I'll keep mentioning this. Is either 100% or 0%. So there's no gray, there's no middle point in Sharia, unfortunately.
Very insightful, mashallah. And you've opened a lot of cans of worms for a lot of us. Hey, this Uber one that even finished. So you're saying that hire purchase is not 100%. All the Kekemarua people who got hire purchase, wow. And all of these things have become so much of a norm for us. Like, it's not a big deal. It will pay now. Most people that do buses, keke, a lot of the informal transport sector, they actually use this kind of transaction. And it has never occurred to me, or maybe most of us, to say that, to question that. And if we are not careful, we're probably doing the same thing in all of our own businesses too, in one form or the other.
In other words, let me go to the Quran now. The Quran says, whatever you earn from interest, give it out. So in other words, all the earnings will have to be given out to charity, not as zakat, but just plain charity.
Okay, we
when
should
you
give it
earn
out.
money from ridiculous activities, yeah, you have to give it out, except you make the process to be compliant, except you pass through that process. So if you earn dividends from commercial financial institutions or from or companies that are not certified, as screened equities, all of those incomes are not compliant. I have to give them out. All of them.
Okay. There's a very simple question of yes or no. Somebody's asking, can a Christian bank with your bank? And I'm thinking the answer is, can a Christian bank with your bank?
90% of those that take Islamic finance, on the asset side, that take facilities, 90% of them are not Muslims in Nigeria. 90 of those people that take facilities are not Muslims.
Would you say, what would you say is responsible for that? Is it lack of knowledge on our part as Muslims, or general attitude? Or is that something that we need to work on? I asked that when you said 90% of the people who take advantage of Islamic banking are non-Muslim. So what's wrong with the rest of us?
The Muslims are largely unbanked. So because they're largely unbanked, it means they're not even using financial institutions.
The
first Sukuk was done in Nigeria. Are you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me quickly give another example before I answer that question. The first
No.
Okay, am I back? I lost you for a few seconds.
Yes, you're back.
You're back, sir.
Okay, yeah, so a lot of the Muslims, based on a FINA research that I do every 2 years, they found out that the bulk of the unbanked are not, the bulk of the unbanked, those are financially excluded. They are from the Islamic faith. So what that then means is that, when opportunities come, and because they are financially excluded, it means they don't have bank accounts, right? And even where they do, because they don't trust the conventional institution, or for whatever reason, level of education, level of awareness, and a lot of other things, because of all of these reasons, they are opposed to using financial institutions. And even where they want to use them, they're not, entrepreneurial rate is low, and then they're not particularly ready for business. So somebody goes to a conventional bank, wants to buy a car, wants to buy a house, then the house is 50 million, the interest is 25 million per annum, and they say, hey, this interest is too much. Do you have any other thing for me? And the guys in the branch say, why not try alternative finance? And the guy goes to the desk where you have the alternative finance guys, and they say, oh, we can buy this same house, and don't forget, we're going to use the rental concept, and you're going to be paying us 18% per annum. What happens? The guy buys it. He tells his friend, come and buy. He's not interested in whether it's Sharia compliant or not. He's interested in the fact that the pricing is lower. So he takes it. But don't forget, the other guy that is supposed to be a Muslim has come to the bank. He has not put down any deposits. He does not have experience in that area. He does not have audited financials. He's not done it before. He has not put together the best team. The population is very weak. And so when that happens, automatically, it doesn't go anywhere. So a combination of all of these has affected that expected segments, to take both. Although it's quite different on the liability side, about 80% of it of the funds are from the Muslim segment. But the asset side, almost 90% from those that are not Muslims. Yeah.
Okay. So this is definitely a food for thought for all of us. We have run out of time. Asri here in Central of Lagos is at 4:12. So would you please put everything in perspective? One last word you'd like to share before we close?
Okay, so what I want to say is that I always try to say that all the time. One of the things that needs to happen is to increase the size of non-interest financial institutions. For every community, every association, everybody, look and cranny, to start to come up with, their community-based, Islamic finance, their compound-based Islamic finance, their estate-based Islamic finance, you have cooperatives in a lot of institutions, you have a lot of institutions, like I said, the new book we have just done now, we are merging all the faiths, to agree on the definition of money, to agree, coming from the experts in all of this field, right? And so at the end of the day, we just need to expand all of these things. The purpose of doing that, on the one hand, for those that believe in the ones of Allah, on the one hand, is to the pledge of Allah. On the other hand, is to fulfill a major aspect of democracy, which is to expand wealth. There's nothing like you're not supposed to be rich. Everybody should be rich. It's an aspect of democracy. Out of the 5 areas that needs to be enhanced, in the democracy Sharia, a major aspect of it is the expansion of wealth, enhancement of wealth, protection of wealth, safeguarding wealth. And I think that part should be taken, very, very important, as much as expansion of faith or safeguarding faith, safeguarding intellect, and the other one. So I think let's try and expand the finance community, probably get microfinance bank license or just the microfinance institution license or whatever, as much as possible. Like we're also now, we're going to work on that virtual Sharia body that will be helping us certify a lot of things in the short term. So on this contract, a lot of us can, for a child, quickly look at these things and get back to say, okay, these are the minor tweaks you need to make it fully compliant, and just fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jazakumullah khairan, for your time. May Allah bless you for this and all the work that we're going to do with you along the way with this virtual thing. Thank you so much, sir, for it. Lastly, before you go, somebody's asking you that could you share with us the title of your book on Islamic finance? I believe that's what the question is.
Yes. Marketing materials will be out, I think, tomorrow during the week. So the title is Integral to Islamic Finance, a semiotic approach. Integral.
So we would hope that you will share the marketing material with us so that we can share it with our network, inshallah.
Material during the week, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
There's a Reverend Father there, they're a Jewish, writer, all that. So it's a good combination.
Okay, great. So I'm going to hand everybody over to Mr. Aziz Lawal. Aziz, are you still there? Hello. So we promised that okay. So you are taking us out. I'm signing out right now. Jazakumullah khairan, everyone, for hanging out with me. We'll see you next time, inshallah.
Dr. Basheer, you can exit now. Actually, I'm not sure I won't have the guts to speak in your presence, so you can exit now.
Don't mind him, boys. Our guy of finance. So okay, so Aziz, bye.
I mean, it's not like I'm going to speak forever. Anyway, I just have 2 minutes too. Since we said we're going to give insight on equities, and Basheer was not going to mention name of companies for reasons. He's not supposed to mention names of companies, but I can in my own role, I can mention names of companies. So if you're interested in investing in equities, so there's a Sharia process, which of course Basheer highlighted, and we have a couple of companies that have met that standard in Nigeria. Of course, you have Jaiz Bank by default, so you can buy the shares of that Jaiz Bank. It's trading presently between 60 kobo and 70 kobo thereabouts. So it's a good investment if you're interested in going Islamic as far as equities is concerned. Dangote Cement is there. Dangote Sugar is there. You have Nestle, you have Bois Cement. These are very good companies, and quite a number of them are underpriced. So if you want to invest in equities, as far as halal equities is concerned, you have more than 10 options. You also have Kadri is also there. Quite a number of other companies that have met that Sharia compliance standard. Then also, when you are going to invest in this period, I mean, this pandemic, this period, I will call it pandemic period, typically, you don't go for too risky assets. Typically, in this kind of time, you go for investments that are very liquid, and your income is kind of reasonably guaranteed. So that's why in a pandemic, it is safer to go for a fixed income instrument like Sukuk instead of buying equities. I mean, equities at this period actually is very, very risky. But there's something about investment generally. You should have your investment objective. You should know your risk appetite. The moment you have an objective, you know your risk appetite, and you know for how long you want to stay invested in that course, you will be fine. So even if you choose to say that, oh, fine, I know my risk appetite, I can take risk. Let me go and buy the shares of Jais. Guess what? In the long term, you'll be very, very fine. I mean, I have a boss here that's in the last, what's it called? In the last 40 days now, he has made return on a particular equity of over 100%. So that's interesting. I mean, even though, so that's, it went into equities because he had the appetite to take equities. But normally, this kind of time that we are, it is better you go for an investment that your return is kind of secured and guaranteed. It is fixed. So you can consider Sukuk instead. So that's the part of it. Then again, normally, if you are considering return, normally you should consider what inflation is saying, or else you will not be growing your wealth. What do I mean by that? Currently, inflation is 12.34%. So normally, if you're going to go into any investment or venture, you should at least benchmark your return some reasonable rate above inflation rate, or else you will not be growing your wealth. So how can I, let me make that clear. In 2015, Dangote was number 23rd richest person in the world. About 2015, it was the number 23rd richest person in the world. As we speak, is number 162. I mean, what happened to Dangote? From 23rd to 162. So Dangote is in a country where, I mean, as of 2015, inflation rate was just about 8%. Now inflation rate is about 12.34%. In 2015, the value of the naira with 155 naira, you could buy $1. To buy $1 now, at least official exchange rate, you will need 360 naira. So inflation and devaluation, you must factor in those things when you want to negotiate return, or else you will not be growing in wealth. That's why a lot of us, I mean, you think you have more money, but then those money cannot buy so much because we have lost value to some things that we are not very, very conscious of. So one of the reasons why you invest in the first place is to preserve your wealth. So if you really want to preserve your wealth, you have to perform reasonably above inflation and devaluation. Because of time, we can't go deeper with this. We thought we were going to have so much time. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to share a follow-up notes after this session, maybe before the end, before midnight or so. We're also going to share a questionnaire that will go with it, a survey. So you're going to give us comment about what you've heard today, what you need to, or what you want to hear again, the things you need more on this, because it's a challenge for us that in Nigeria, I mean, to hustle for money, we have taken it as a daily habit, you understand? But if you hustle daily and you don't take steps to preserve what you hustle for daily, you'll be in trouble in this country. That's why no matter how much some people earn, they get poorer. I mean, if you are worth 100 naira yesterday, if CBN devalues naira tomorrow by 10%, you will now be worth 90 naira. Just because, not necessarily because it's your fault, but then you have to be conscious of those kind of steps. So there are some steps you should take in your wealth journey to preserve your wealth. So that's our goal with this series. So like I said, we're going to share notes and questionnaires. Please attend to those questionnaires, and we'll see how we can take it from there. Mutiat, that's it on my part.
Mutiat, Mutiat, we can't hear you. Kindly unmute your.
Oh, okay. So that's it from all of us at MMC. May Allah make what have been shared and what has been learned beneficial for all of us. May He forgive our shortcomings and bless us with abundant afia, particularly money, abundance in abundance. Me, I want to live in Banana Island, so I need it in abundance. Okay, Shuaib, take it away. Bye.
Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan. Asalam Alaykum.